Hi, it's V with Crafting Daily Dose, and today I have an alternative for you from the June 2022 paper pumpkin called Pick of the Crop. This alternative is a sidestep card that stands up for display, just like that. For this one, we're only using components from the kit, but we're repurposing them a little bit. It's really awesome because we got quite a few extra die cuts in the kit, which allows us to step up the look even more. You don't even need any extra cardstock or anything like that. I'm excited to show you how to make this alternative. These are the pieces for the card, and remember they all come from the kit, so I'm not adding anything extra. This is the card base I'm using, except I'm going to turn it so that it's in landscape orientation. I'll be using one of the flower card die cuts, and notice that I've left in the white negative space pieces from between the spokes, and that's because that's going to help disguise the fact that our grass is oriented in the wrong way now that we've turned the card. Now there are extra die cuts in this kit, so if you happen to have an extra flower card and you want to cut off the little canopy from the top, we'll use that to add some dimension over this one. But that's optional and you don't have to have this extra piece. I'm using 2 of the lavender die cuts because again we do have extras, and the linen thread from the kit. And finally, these are the 2 die cut labels that I'm going to be stamping on. Let's go ahead and get started. I'll start by stamping the sentiments onto the labels. I'm using the Calypso Coral ink from the kit, and I've got the foam mat for my Stamparatus underneath. So the main thing that we're doing to create this card is to alter the card base that came with the kit. So here's what it looks like. I'm just going to open it up, and then I'm going to turn it this way so that the printed part is along the bottom. And I'm going to place this at 3 1/8 of an inch. Once I have it in position, I'm going to do a partial cut. And to do that, I am looking at the measurements that are along the guide here, and I want to line up the little notch on the edge of my cutting blade, which is that darker gray one. I'm going to line it up with the measurements that I need. So I'm going to be cutting from 2 1/8 down to 7 1/2. So let's go ahead and place it at 2 1/8. Once I have it in position, I'll press down, and then I'm going to cut down to 7 1/2. And since I'm off camera there, I'll just go ahead and show you this is where I ended up. Once I've done that, I will go ahead and take this out, and now I'm going to turn the whole thing counterclockwise. So now I've got my printed part of the card base on the right here, and here is that cut that I just made. I'm going to move this darker cutting blade out of the way because now I'm going to use the scoring blade, which is this lighter gray one. I'm going to first place it at 2 1/8 of an inch. And what I'm going to be doing for each of these is I'm going to be scoring from the top of the card down to that cut that I created. Let me show you what that looks like. It's a little bit hard to see with the lighting, but I think that you can see that there's a score line there, goes from the top down to the cut. So that was the first one at 2 1/8. We're also going to use this score line that's already in place. That's the one at 4 1/4. Next is 5 3/8. Here's the 5 1/2. 5 3/8 is going to be just a little bit less than that. I'm going from the top down to that cut. Now I'll go to 6 1/2, and to do that I need to open up the swing arm. The 6 1/2 mark is going to be over here. And then one last one at 7.5. Once we've created those, we can go ahead and fold along the score lines. So this first one here, actually it was the last one that we created, this is going to be a mountain fold away. The next one is going to be a valley fold towards us. And you're going to see that we're basically making little accordion folds. The next one, you guessed it, that's going to be a mountain fold away. And then the one that was originally there from the card, we're going to invert this. So it's currently a mountain fold, but we're going to invert it and create a valley fold from it. And then the last one here, this was actually the first one that we created, this is going to be a mountain fold. So now you can see what that looks like, and I'll give you a view from the side. I'm going to go back and reinforce all of these folds with my bone folder. While the trimmer is out, you can also prepare this extra canopy piece if you are using it. Now, I've already cut along the bottom edge in order to separate it from the rest of the flower die cut, and now I'm going to use my snips to cut off this white border as well. Now, since this is a whimsical die cut, you'll notice that some of the color goes above this line here. If you want to, you can leave it like this so that you're cutting straight across, or you can trim along that line if you prefer. Once you finish trimming out your piece, it's time to make a score line. So I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to put this top edge down along the measurements here on the right-hand side. I want it to be about 1/8 of an inch or so. I'm just estimating here. I'm kind of making this line parallel to one of these guidelines that I have here. And it doesn't really matter exactly where it is. If you're having trouble keeping it still, then you can use a little sticky note here. I'm just going to use that to kind of give myself an extension so that I have something to hang on to. And I'll go ahead and make a score line. It's roughly 1/8 of an inch, but anywhere between 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch is fine, and it doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to then fold that as a little valley fold here. Since it's so close to the edge, I'm just being careful and doing a little bit at a time. And that's going to give me a little bit of extra dimension when I lay this on top of the other canopy. And it's already time to assemble. Don't put glue on the parts of the card that are not going to touch the card base. And don't forget to keep in those negative space pieces down by the wheels. I'll be gluing the flower cart to the card base, lining up the right edge of the cart with the cut edge on the card base. Here's that extra canopy piece. I've placed some dimensionals along the bottom. Now you probably don't need this many, but I usually like to use a lot so that the pieces have a lot of support because I mail most of my cards. And then I'm also going to put some glue along this top edge here. So a line of glue here. And then I will remove the backing from my dimensionals. I'll align those canopy pieces. And then you can see from the side that that's going to give the canopy a little extra lift. I'm also using dimensionals to attach on that sentiment label. I'm going to take one of my lavender pieces and then trim it down to create two new pieces. I'm going to cut right here to separate out those two sections. I'll give you a closer look at that so you can see where I cut. And now I'm going to go back and fussy cut to give a cleaner border. Those two pieces are now going to go on the bottom step. Then I'll take the other lavender piece and trim down some of the height. I still want it to be tall enough so that you could see some of it behind the other pieces, but not so tall that it's going to block my other sentiment. And then the sentiment is going to go on that back step. Now for a finishing touch, I've got a 14-inch piece of that linen thread. I'm going to fold it in half, so I'm using it doubled right now, and then I will go ahead and just tie a simple little bow right here in the middle of it. Now if you're running low on the linen thread, you can make this a lot shorter and just do a single bow, but I like the impact of having it doubled up like this. Just going to adjust those loops and then trim off the ends. Now this loop here is because I had folded it over and doubled it, so I'm just gonna snip that open. So that's what that looks like, and if I wanted to, I can trim those ends a little bit shorter, but I think I'm happy with that. Now I've got one of the little mini glue dots. I will peel off the backing and then press the center of my bow onto the glue dot and then lift it off. So now the adhesive is on the back here, and I'll go ahead and add it to my little marker. Like that. There's our finished card. It folds flat for mailing and then stands up on its own for display. We've got lots of dimension here with the different layers over on the step side, and then we've got dimension with our label and the canopy on top. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this dose of creativity. If you're interested in Paper Pumpkin but don't have a demonstrator, you can find the subscription link as well as all of my other links in the description box below. If you get a chance to try out the project, I would love to see it. Feel free to share it in my Facebook group or tag me if you're sharing elsewhere. I hope to see you again next time, and until then, have a great day.